Thank you, all of you, for showing up this evening, especially our guest interns. And for those watching the recording, I hope this is going to be beneficial for you. So just leading in, one of our big things with the Leadership Development Committee in conjunction with the GSA division was that we wanted to take the intimidation out of applying to be an AECT intern and kind of introduce what's going on with that program, how it's changed, but also the benefits of being a member or being in that program, not only for a student, but also for a young professional in the field of educational technology. So I'm going to turn it over to Megan, who is the intern coordinator, but she was also an intern herself in 2014. So Megan, go ahead and give us kind of an overview of the program and introduce our interns.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. We definitely want to share information about the program, but I'm basically going to give a quick, hopefully like maybe 5 minutes or less, general overview of the program. And then we're going to get to some questions that we have, which will answer more questions about the program. But all of the information about our intern program is now available on our updated webpage, which is on this title slide. It's aect.org/intern program. So you can go ahead and visit that at your leisure, and more specific detailed information, is, including the evaluation criteria for the application is available there. All right. So let's get started. Leadership development internships. In AECT, we have 3 different awards that fall under leadership development. We have the Carl F. Strobin and the Lee W. Cochran internships, which are managed by the intern coordinator, which is me this year. I also was the intern coordinator last year, and so I oversaw those 2 as well. Then we have a 3rd award, which is the Jenny Johnson International Intern, and that is overseen by the International Division. So it's hard for me to answer questions about those. I try as best as I can, but if you have specific questions about the Jenny Johnson International internship, there is a link on the intern page in the Jenny Johnson section that you can click on and send an email and ask any questions you might have that I'm not able to answer for you. So internship highlights about our program. One of the main things is that you'll be featured at the AECT International Convention, and you'll have a behind-the-scenes opportunity to see how the organization operates. You'll also engage and meet with key leaders in the field as well as within our organization. And we will continue to develop your leadership skills through our mentoring program. You're matched with an AECT member, and you set a goal to work on over the year that you're the intern, or and work together on a specific goal. And so we don't just do stuff at the conference, we do stuff before the conference, and we do stuff after the conference as well. In order to apply for these internships, you need to be either a graduate student or you need to be a new professional within the first 3 years of being in the field. So the Strobin is awarded to a graduate student, but the Cochran internships can be awarded to graduate students or new professionals. And the Jenny Johnson is awarded to either or. It can be a graduate student or a new professional. For the Cochran and the Strobin interns, the internship criteria that we look at inside your application is your service within AECT and other activities outside of AECT. We also look to see what your commitment is to AECT and your responses, and what your commitment has been so far and what your future commitment is. We also are looking for emerging leadership. So if you've had a leadership role in other organizations outside of AECT, and also what maybe leadership experiences you've had within AECT. We also look at your professionalism as well as your goals and your interests and how they align with the leadership development internship program. There are 3 things that you need to compile in order to have a complete application packet. The application is done completely online. There are 5 candidate statements that you need to answer. Those are listed on the intern website so that you can prepare ahead of time, which is a good idea, instead of trying to do it while you have the application open on the screen. It'd be a good idea to use some type of word processing software to compose your answers ahead of time. And then you also need to upload a current CV or resume, as well as indicate a sponsor. You won't upload the sponsor letter, and a request will actually be sent out to your sponsor that you've indicated, and they will submit their sponsor letter for you, independent of you. Specific information about a sponsor: they have got to be a current AECT member, and sponsors may only support 1 intern applicant. This is probably the most common reason for a packet not to get considered, is by somebody getting sponsored by a sponsor that has already turned in a letter for another applicant. When it happens early enough in the process, I'm usually able to identify the problem and take care of it. We've had that happen in the past, and other applicants have been able to get a new sponsor and get a letter in on time. But if you wait and put it off to applying at the last minute, which I did have last year, I did have an applicant that it impacted, and that application wasn't complete because they didn't have enough time to secure a different sponsor. You also want to make sure that the sponsor that you ask is knowledgeable about you, and that they have a familiarity with what you've done inside AECT, outside of AECT, you know, what your leadership potential is, and that they're able to paint a picture, so to speak, of what your abilities are. That will lend for a strong application packet. Here is the key information that you need to know for the 2018 internship application. This is the timeline. Our online application will open April 2nd. There will be a live link on the intern page, and the application process will close on June 4th. Once that closes, we will then have a selection committee that reviews all the applications, and then they will determine who would be awarded the internships for the Strobin and the Cochrane internships. And like I said, the Jenny Johnson is handled by the international division, so they will review those applications. And that internship has a separate application link, which is also available on the intern page. So just look and make sure that when you're applying that you're going into the right application form. The conference date this year is October 21st to the 27th. Now I know that seems longer to you than what is posted, because it is. The interns actually get there before the conference starts and helps with setup and gets to see more behind the scenes how the organization operates in order to pull off an international conference of the scope that we do. This year, the location is in Kansas City, Missouri, and interns who are selected for 2018 will be expected to attend. That is part of the obligation to fulfill if you are selected as an intern. So I wanted to make sure those dates are on your calendar if you're applying, to make sure that you know that that's when you would need to be in Kansas City. We will announce the class of 2018 around July 26th. It'll be announced at the summer leadership meeting, and that's usually in July, that 3rd week of July. So the announcement will be made at the meeting, and then right after the meeting, when it's announced, then an email will go out and notify everyone of acceptance, who was accepted or selected, I should say, for the internship for 2018. And oops. All right, so that concludes all the information I plan on presenting about the program. We have 3 of our past AECT interns. We have Bruce DuBoff from our class of 2017. We have Lisa Kidder from our class of 2016. And we have Jessica Resig from our class of 2017 as well. And so I'm going to pass the mic back to Sean, and he is going to start us off with questions for the interns. Sean, we're not hearing you. Nope, still not hearing you.
How about this?
Now I hear you.
Uh-oh. You hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So I have a question for you, Megan.
Okay.
Okay. Can you tell us like one of the major pitfalls of any application that you see? Like what is something that you see over and over and over again that you wish people knew about and try to avoid?
Well, one is, like I mentioned, having a sponsor that's already filled out or already submitted a letter for somebody else. Right. That's like, I had 6 people that happened with last year. So that was a pretty common pitfall. So really making sure that your sponsor is only writing for you and not for anyone else is like the key thing. After that, the next thing would be providing specific examples. Just telling me that you worked on a project really doesn't tell me what role you played in that project, or not me specifically, because I'm not actually on the selection committee. I just gather all the materials and sort everything and then pass the materials to the selection committee, and they review everything and they have a rubric that they use. But they really need to know like what it is that you've done, what your role has been. So you want to be very specific with the examples that you give. So if you held a leadership position in GSA or in another division in the organization, what projects did you work on? But what did you specifically do? Just saying, oh, I was the GSA rep to the AECT board isn't enough. You need to specifically say, what did you do?
All right. No, that's good information. And as you were talking, that question just came up. So thank you for answering that for us. Our first question to the interns. Thanks for joining us. And how did you begin your leadership quest in AECT? So any of you feel free to start. If you have an answer right off the bat, just jump in there.
Well, gosh, not being very shy myself, I guess I'll. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Bruce DuBoff. I am a second-year PhD student at Rutgers University in library science, and I'm also a 25-year practitioner. So I came to AECT through the New Jersey Association of School Librarians, who is an affiliate of AECT, and I became friendly with a woman named Leslie Blatt, who is very involved in AECT, and I applied for and received an award called the Billy Gandhi Scholarship Award, which brought me down to a conference. Once I was at a conference, I was hooked, and that was 2012. I think it was in Jacksonville. I think it was in Louisville, because Louisville, it was the year of Sandy, and I just missed Sandy. Right, that's how I remember it.
Louisville, 2012 was Louisville.
Right, I was driving away from Sandy thinking, ha ha! Right. But once I went to AECT in 2012, I was totally hooked. I made great friends. I fell in with the SMT, the School Media Technology people, right away. We just became family immediately, and that experience spurred me on to just get more and more and more involved.
Well, I'll jump in. We were, as a PhD student, I was encouraged to do AECT, submit our research, and so ended up at Anaheim was my first conference. And then I actually had more leadership experience outside of AECT, but where I really wanted to get more involved was when I participated in the 3-minute thesis competition. So being involved as part of that, even as a participant, and seeing how that went. And then, so I won the 3MT and then was invited to continue and be on that committee. So that's where my entry into AECT was getting involved and connecting and talking with the people that, as Bruce pointed, yeah, you kind of got there and felt at home.
So I was actually also new at Anaheim. I am a recent graduate of Old Dominion's PhD program, and so our faculty encouraged us to become involved and to attend whenever we could. So made the trip to Anaheim, and I actually started with the D&D competition. So I was fortunate enough to be a finalist in what was the Pacific Corps, now the D&D competition. So that was a wonderful experience. It was a really nice opportunity to network with people, get to know a really great group of colleagues. I got more involved with the GSA, and so I started working on the GSA newsletter. That was kind of my first step with them, and then worked through different positions in GSA, serving as the rep to the D&D board, and then as a D&D board associate. So I've been really fortunate to find my niche with that group, and kind of grow from there.
Our next question, kind of following up, some of you covered this a little bit. Do you have any tips for those who want to be an AECT leader? Okay. What would you tell somebody that says, I'm thinking about becoming an intern at some point, but I know I need to have exhibited some sort of leadership to AECT. How do I get involved? So what would one of your first things to tell them to be?
Well, just based on mine and Jessica's experience, is enter a competition.
Okay, yeah.
But I think the one thing that I loved at my first conference is I did the Breakfast of Champions. So sitting down and just talking, and that actually made me aware that anybody I sat next to, I could ask a question to. So no matter who it was or whose name was on my textbook, everybody was willing to support me in that process. And so in having the conversations with people around me, it's like, yes, I want to associate more with these people. And then looking for open spots with the call. So getting involved in GSA or just volunteering with some of the smaller committees.
I think that was really important, finding ways to get involved with the committees that fit well with your interests. So if if a person knows that they want to continue into a leadership role, thinking deeply about what your strengths are, what your contributions could be, and then talking to people on that division about what opportunities exist and what their needs are, and see where they may align. So I know for me, when I first started my career, I was an English and social studies teacher. And so writing and journalism were a big strength of mine. And when I found out there was a need with the newsletter, I just fit in really well with that group, and I was able to pick up speed from there. So find something you're passionate about, find something that you can really help to elevate within the organization. And that'll make it more meaningful to you. It'll make it more enjoyable to you, and also, help you to produce quality work for the group. So I think that was beneficial to me to get me started.
I would say find that person early if you can. Find that sponsorish kind of person, that person who's going to, I was very lucky in that I had a person who kind of introduced me to the organization. She held my hand, she walked up to me, she said, "This is so-and-so, this is so-and-so." I was new to everything. I wasn't a PhD student at the time when I first came to AECT. I was just a school librarian, who was interested in, I'd gotten this scholarship, but that one person may be the person who connects you with everybody else. So, so don't underestimate the value of one person who you get close to, who's in the kind of the leadership circle.
And I think that's a good point. Just from my own experience, I'm not an intern, okay? I'm not claiming to be an intern or anything, but I will say that the reason I got involved in AECT is because Dr. Curry was the one who encouraged me to come to AECT when it was in Las Vegas. So, and I was presenting with him, and so he kind of showed me the ropes and took me around, and it was Leslie Blatt who said, hey, you're going to come over to SMT, you're going to come have a good time, and we're going to get you involved in AECT. And that's just how it happened. Is somebody started introducing me to people, and it just kind of took off from there. So sounds like you guys have a lot of similar experience with that type of thing. But I know one of the questions that I had when somebody said, are you going to apply to be an intern, is, man, those guys, and gals, they look like they are working their tails off during convention. Okay. And yes, that's true. But is it as busy as they say, or what are some tips and tricks that you might have to say, yeah, it's really busy, but here's how I got over that hurdle? So what might you say to that?
You can see everybody jumping to answer this question. We're all like, who's going to take it first? Yes, it's busy. I think it's the name of the game. I think recognizing that up front, Megan did a great job prepping us. We had our schedules far in advance. We knew what to expect. Use the organizational tools at your disposal. Use your phone. Keep your calendar up to date. Know where you need to be. Make sure you've got snacks and hydration, right? But I think more than anything, it's a mindset. So it's recognizing what a wonderful opportunity you've been given, recognizing the service that you're giving back to the organization, recognizing the networking, the chance that you're getting to meet all these wonderful people that you may not have otherwise been able to meet. That medal around your neck is pretty obvious as you're walking around. So people recognize what that is and who you are and what you're doing. So it is busy, but it's very rewarding and very much worth it.
But if I may jump in, I really, you have to look at it. You have to approach it as a service experience. You're serving the community. You're serving the larger community, and in some way, that larger community is going to serve you. But you're kind of paying your dues. It's the one way that everybody in like all 1,000 people who are there are going to know you by the fact that you're an intern. So, whatever you're doing, just remember that, you're on a service mission. I mean, even when I was, and, ask Megan and Jess and John, even when I was, running around, throwing up because I was like not hydrated enough, still, I was like happy about it. I was like, I'm throwing up, but you know what? I'm getting this paper to this guy, at 3 o'clock, and that's when he needs it. I'll just clean up the vomit later, but, it's, you understand you're in service. So, put a smile on your face, act like you're in service. And the other thing is, for me, that's what I was joking about, pace yourself. If you are like me, a diabetic, you might have a situation, where you're not hydrating enough, like Jess said, you're not eating enough, you're not drinking enough. You got to do that. I mean, because if you're unhealthy and you're in your room, you're not helping anybody. And that means that the other interns who were kind enough to do this when this happened to me have to pick up for you, and they're really busy as it is. So I would just say, yeah, absolutely, service.
And just to spin off what Bruce was saying, normally I go to a conference and I look through the schedule and I put everything down, I plan everything, but you're in a different role. And so this isn't about what you're going to get out of the conference. It's what you're going to help other people get out of the conference, and changing that mindset so that, there might have been that one session that you wanted to go to, and maybe you talked to the intern coordinator so that you can be there at that point. But other than that, no, your job is out talking with people. There was a couple of times where I basically did take the opportunity to just sit for a moment and chat with somebody outside of a session, just to catch my breath, make sure I was hydrated, but also get my mind in a place so that when the next event came up where I had to be on, I was ready to be on.
I always joke that you should schedule a vacation the week after conference so you can recover from going nonstop the whole time.
We had a question to kind of introduce that if you are selected as an intern, and interns, you might want to piggyback on this or just tell us how awesome this was. All expenses are paid to go to the conference. You go to the conference and you are there and you're, I think Bruce said it the best, you're paying your dues, okay? So you are working your way through the conference, but just wanted to make sure that was pointed out. Do you have anything to add to that, interns?
I'm going to add to that. All
Okay.
expenses are not paid.
Oh, sorry. Sorry.
Your conference registration is covered and your hotel is covered. Then you're given a stipend, and how you spend that stipend is what gets covered. So depending on how far you're traveling, it could cover your airfare and ground transportation. It could possibly cover your meals as well. It just really depends. We do provide breakfast every morning for the interns while they're there. And then I'm trying to think, there's a leadership luncheon that's usually covered for the interns as well. But other than that, usually you're on your own for other meals, if you have time for them, like they were saying. One of the intern survival tips is to bring snacks with you, power bars, protein bars, that type of stuff. Mixed nuts if you can have them, a bottled water or a water container that you can refill, because you are on the go. And so yeah, it's not completely covered, but most of it just depending on how far you're traveling.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. As far as just the general program itself, the internship program, it is a commitment that goes beyond, like you guys have said, goes beyond just the convention. But what has been the most valuable part of your internship? What have you taken away that you're going to say, this was the best part of all of it? It's hard to decide on the best part.
I'll start, and this is kind of different, but the best part of me is my other interns. We've actually been, we met every month. We met just a few weeks ago because we were missing each other. And so that connection has been really, really helpful. And the projects and research that has spun out of those relationships that I've made both with my interns, fellow interns, and with my mentor, that follow-up afterwards, that has really helped project me on where I want to go with my career, which has been, I think, my favorite part.
I'm going to follow up on Lisa. I really like what she said. And I agree that my favorite part is probably the idea that I made so many research connections and I created so many research possibilities. And of course, now I am presenting in Kansas City with my intern. I mean, with my
your mentor.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Intern, 2017 intern. So still a little addle brain from. So I am presenting with my mentor and somebody else, and that is also leading to other, not only publishing opportunities, which are important to me, but idea opportunities. Because remember, I'm not exactly an instructional designer. I'm in library science. So the intersection of instructional design and LIS is something that I really wouldn't have full access to without this, without this collection of people, especially my mentor who, can kind of guide me through that and share some of that with me. So yeah, I mean, that's those research relationships. I mean, don't get me wrong, the interns will be friends for a lifetime. I mean, we just will, but the research that will happen will also, I think, be friends with us for a lifetime.
And so just to take a bit of a different spin, I had also, I mean, I can't speak highly enough of my mentor. She's been wonderful, and the conference itself was a great experience. But I also really appreciated having insights into the organization itself. So I think for me, it was really valuable to become more involved with the Leadership Development Committee and have the opportunity to meet with people in a variety of leadership capacities across the organization so that I could get a sense of how things are functioning within different divisions and across the divisions, the relationships between them, because you start to recognize patterns and you start to see some broader organizational needs rise, right? So you have the opportunity to start to understand how things are functioning, how decisions are made. And so I think that was also really valuable, just to, kind of take a different lens.
All right, thank you. A follow-up to that. So we talked about what's the most valuable, and besides the convention, besides that whole week and everything that entails, what has been the most challenging part of the internship?
Two things for me. Outside, you're saying not during the convention, right?
Yeah, we hit on the challenges, the unique challenges of the convention. Is there anything else that you can say is challenging about the internship?
Couple of things. Number one, once you leave the internship, once you leave the convention, you're now a high-profile person. And you're expected to, well, you're not expected, but you place expectations on yourself to be more involved in the program. And of course, we're all very, very busy people. So, so that is one of the challenges. I mean, it's not a bad busy, it's a good busy, but it is busy nonetheless. So that is one of the great challenges after the convention. The other one is, to me, and we've been working on this, our intern, my intern class has been working on, the project that we're preparing. And, this project can go in a million different directions. And we're finding that, things that we thought we might be able to do, maybe we can't do, things we might want to do, we're going to do it a different way. And there's a lot of negotiation that's involved. And there's a lot of discussion that's involved in moving a major organization. So I'd say that's also a challenge, but an exciting challenge.
Honestly, for me, I don't think there was, it was exciting. So it was, I'm someone who likes a challenge. It was a challenge of things I'm like to take on. Little things, Bruce kind of alluded this, is you do need to set aside time for the project. So we had to schedule a time when somebody in Oregon and somebody in Belgium could meet at the same time. That's one of those.
That's a challenge.
That's a logistical challenge. And I will say that I did not have this issue, but you're an intern now. And so yes, you have this mentor, and some mentor relationships work out really well. And some mentor relationships, you need to encourage your mentor to mentor you. So that I did not have that issue. One of my fellow interns shared some concerns of that, but I'm also that person that says, hey, you haven't spoken to me in a while. Can we meet next Thursday? So being proactive and stepping into that type of leadership, even with your mentor.
I don't know that I have, Bruce and I don't have a lot of experience outside of the convention at this point, because we just had the convention in November. And so I think our challenges are pretty similar, just in terms of, kicking off the project. We're in the very early stages. And so looking forward to seeing how things take shape and working collaboratively as a group here over the next few months to make some forward progress. time, certainly, right? I think Lisa hit the nail on the head. It's really the commitment to set time aside.
All right, thank you. So I'm just going to paraphrase. I mean, and some of the interns who responded earlier today had some similar challenging things that they mentioned, but especially just from what I'm hearing from you guys is that there's a unique challenge being placed upon the interns that, you know, during their year, they have to work together on a collaborative research-based project, find time to do that with other colleagues from around the world, around the country, and everything. So, I mean, that in and of itself is a trying task. So I can understand that that is one of the major challenges. And obviously, I think it's one of the goals of the program is to get people collaborating across state lines, national lines, and all that other stuff, is to build a broader community of discourse. So kind of our last question, unless anything pops up on the chat or there's specific things that somebody wants to cover. What is one thing you would tell anyone who says, I want to apply, you know, I want to apply to be an intern? What is the one thing that you want to tell them before they even start?
I think for me, I was introduced to this program shortly after my first conference in Anaheim. And I knew I wasn't ready. And I knew I wasn't ready because one of the questions on the application is, what are your future goals within the organization? And so the program really challenges you to think not just about the service that you've already put in, but where do you want to go from here? What's your vision for the future? How can you contribute down the road? You know, and thinking about your relationship with your mentor, how can you work with that person? What are your goals? And so I think if you're interested in applying for an internship, it's really critical to take the time to think about your leadership roadmap, think about your, you know, how you want to develop as a professional in that space, and have that vision ready before you apply, because the application asks. So I think, you know, for me, that was a challenge, but it was also probably the most valuable thing I forced myself to do, to really set out a leadership roadmap, think about where I want to be in the next, you know, 5 years or so, and how to move through that, and how the internship plays in that process.
Very good.
Yeah, you know, let me join in to say to follow up with what Jess said. I was in a slightly different situation. By the time I had been introduced to the intern program, I had already been in AECT 4 or 5 years. I had already gotten to know a lot of people. I had already served, you know, as a representative to the board, and, you know, I was already kind of involved. For me, interning was really like a stepping stone. Because what I noticed was I looked around and I looked at all of these people who I really admired at AECT, who had all of these, you know, things, and they were all interns. I mean, like every one of them was an intern. Oh, look, I was an intern from 1977. Look, I was 81. Look, I was 6, you know. So I got this idea that, you know what, if you really want to be, you know, you really want to be an AECT, and you really like AECT, and I really do a lot, and you think AECT likes you as well, and I'm kind of hoping that's the case, then internship really is a stepping stone. It's you know, it's one of those things that you should do along the way that will get you intimately involved in with those people in a way that you never were before. So I would say it's kind of an important, you know, it's like for me, it was a wheat from the chaff thing. You know, am I the wheat or am I the chaff? You know, but the truth is, it's not really like that. It's not really like the wheat from the chaff. It's really like are you committed or are you, you know, and if you're, you know what, don't bother, because it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But if you're really committed, it's a wonderful experience.
Good. Thank you.
I'd say it's kind of a couple of things, but talk to somebody who's in AECT, which is kind of like your first step in getting that sponsor person. So I did. I talked to my advisor, who ended up being my sponsor, and thinking about the questions, like Jessica said, looking through that application and really thinking about those questions and those answers. I'd say based on Jessica and Bruce's experience with AECT, I had very little experience with AECT, but I was able to draw upon other experiences and leadership opportunities to be specific, to look at the questions and look at the rubric, so that you can really clearly delineate who you are and what your goals are in relationship to where you want to go. So those are the two things I think would be helpful, is getting that sponsor actually early, and helping, inviting that person to help you apply, and really looking through those questions and those prompts and the rubric.
And one excellent points, Lisa. And once you commit to applying to be an intern, complete the application. Make sure it's correct. Go over it 20 times. Dot every I and cross every T, because people like Megan, or like Tanya Doucet or whoever, who are going to be reviewing these applications, are, they're going to be reviewing them. They're tough. They're fair. They're very understanding, but they are exacting. So I just invite you to be exacting in your approach to the application.
Actually, I don't have to make the decision. There's actually a selection committee that's made up of 3 individuals, and they review everything. So we have a past intern that sits on the committee, a past AECT president, and a foundation president that sit. So there's three people that review the applications that are submitted, and they make the determination. So I'm just there as the facilitator and kind of like the moderator, but I don't have any input into it. But what Bruce said is right. You definitely want to review your application. It would be very helpful to have someone else read your answers and make sure that they're clear. And if they're reading them and they're not understanding what you wrote, then you probably need to clarify a little bit more. And you definitely want to paint a picture. You want to be descriptive about what you've done and give details instead of just being generic. You want to definitely give specific details of your leadership abilities and what you've done so far, even if it's not in AECT, if those leadership experiences have been in another organization outside of AECT.
I'd also like to add that if you don't make it this year, this is an intern project that it goes from graduate student to into your 3 years. And so just the process of going through the application is a good professional reflection piece to help point you in the right direction. So if you make an application, you apply, and you don't make it this year, then think about that, make some changes, follow through with your goals and your aspirations, and apply again the following year.
I was given that exact advice, by the way. When I applied, I was told, listen, you don't make it this year, you try again next year.
It sounds like you guys had, I don't know, kinder advice than me. I was told, you're not going to get it this year, but you're going to take the feedback and you're going to revise it and you're going to improve upon your leadership. And so that's one thing that I would definitely say is that, the feedback that I received last year was very helpful, and it's one of the things that has gotten me more involved. Besides, I guess it's just the fact I can't say no. Don't tell anybody that, please. But no, Dr. Curry, who's my sponsor, he's also my chair, said, when you don't get it, you're going to read through it, you're going to improve upon it, and you're going to apply the following year. So very good advice on that. Okay. Any other questions out there? I'll take a moment to just pause and field any more questions you may have.
I find this very informative and very well run. I'm just curious if you guys have thoughts. I don't want to derail the agenda of how we could get more people interested in this wonderful opportunity. Fill this room up big time. Fill and overload your review team.
We do have quite a few. We usually range anywhere between 24 and 40 applications.
Oh, so they don't kind of have to attend this to
No,
apply. Oh.
no.
I
This is something that we just started this year to provide more information about the program, to answer any questions, just to help with, addressing any myths, I guess. I think Sean was trying to allude to that at the beginning, about the program and the application process and everything. So, and just getting some more exposure for the intern program and what it's about and what's involved and everything.
Awesome. Sorry. Cool. The elimination of myths is a good thing. A
Yeah,
very good thing.
absolutely.
Very good thing.
Yeah, especially when people think I'm the one who selects the interns. That's not the
Well,
case.
it's complicated and people don't know. So this is wonderful.
Yeah, so we wanted to be more transparent. Yeah.
We thought you did everything, Megan. We just thought you did every single thing.
No.
No, she is not responsible for voting people off the island. Okay,
No.
that's other people's job. She just makes sure that they leave.
No, that's Omarosa. She's
Well, to jump in and answer your question, one of the things that I think would be good is to encourage the leadership to actually step up and think about who they would want to sponsor. So rather than looking at the graduate student, but look at more from the those people who would sponsor, because that is really what encouraged me. Was my sponsor talked about it and kind of sought out, and she actually does make a point every year to say, who am I going to sponsor this year? And it was, Lisa, I want to sponsor you this year, which really helped encourage me. And so that's something that leadership can talk about. Everybody in leadership should sponsor somebody.
When you say leadership, I'm just confused. Your graduate supervisor tapped you and became your sponsor and said, you should apply. So you're saying as graduate supervisor, we should do this, or you're saying EST leaders should do this?
All the above.
All of the above. Okay. Where do you think's the most beneficial? The grad to supervisee relationship or the AEC leader to? See, I would think the leader has a harder time finding students. But the dynamic of tapping your grad student is a tough one too. So
it is, especially if they haven't gotten involved in the organization. And that's why it's good to advocate for joining a professional organization. That's how I got involved with AECT. Is one of my professors said, you need to consider joining a professional organization for the field. And here's a couple of choices, and like gave us a list of different organizations. And then I said to him, well, which one would you recommend? And Dr. Schlosser said, AECT. And so that's how I attended my first conference in 2011, was because a professor recommended attending. And then I say it's all downhill from there. But each year I just found a way of getting more involved. 2012 was when I met Tanya, and Tanya kind of like pushed me into the leadership role in AECT. So that's how I kind of got my start. But kind of going back to one of the things that was mentioned earlier about applying, I didn't get selected as an intern the first year I applied. So I definitely recommend if you apply and you don't get it, to apply again, because as you get more involved, then you develop more experience and you develop more examples of your leadership that you can share in your application. And when I go back and look at my application from the first year that I applied to the second year I applied, you would have thought it was two completely different people that applied to the program, because I had gotten so much more involved in the organization by that second year.
Yeah, it's like a lot of things. I mean, when I applied to my PhD program, I was turned down the first time. So if you really want something, you just go for it and you just keep on going for it. And and the more they see your name And the more they see, so you don't make it this year. So now you get involved in a couple of you get involved in a couple of committees. You get to know people. You get to know people through people. And then the next time you apply, those people actually know you a lot better, and they're a lot more disposed to look at you in the way that they now know you, not in the way that they didn't know you.
And that's a really good point to make about, hey, try out a couple of different committees or whatever. And for anybody watching this later on, we talked about this at our first webinar, but there are so many volunteer opportunities in the AECT. If you're not an elected position on a committee or whatever, that doesn't mean you can't go to that committee. I wasn't on SMT at all last year officially, but I sat in on every online meeting that I could and talked to people, and they said, hey, are you going to the convention? Yes, I'm going to the convention. Well, you can help at the table, meet the divisions. And then I got involved with First Timers Committee. And so it was just a snowball effect. But again, I wasn't elected to this role. I just asked, hey, can I sit in on this stuff? And they said yes. And so, people will take you up on your volunteerism. And everybody is very welcoming in AECT that I've ever. So, well, here's my final thought. Thank you for being here. And if you have watched this webinar remotely, please take some time to follow us on Facebook and see our upcoming webinar dates. And thanks for watching. Make sure that you get those applications ready in time. Be sure to tune in and join us as our special edition webinar series dealing with the internship program continues.